Learn to say no when necessary. Learn to say yes when it lights you up. So if something doesn't light you up, no thank you. Put the thank you on the end of it. It's perfect. It helps you to honor the other person, but also make your quiet getaway. And you'll prioritize self-care when you set realistic boundaries. Well, hi there. Welcome to Intuition, Your Success Compass. This is where we figure out how to connect our soul self with our human self. And I help you get there because of 23 years of experience, as well as continuing to learn in my own experience as a human in having a soul experience and a soul having a human experience. They're intertwined. One of the things that is most human, although never sent in from the soul, is the subject or the experience or the process of guilt. And that's what we're going to talk about today, because it's in all of us, but intrinsically, interestingly, it is the only emotion that is taught to us. Isn't that fascinating? Like, it's the only experience that's really taught to us on a human level that does not come through from a soul perspective, at least from my understanding, my knowing, and doing this a very long time. Guilt has always felt like this frequency that was external. And why? Because it is often, it all the time is, given to us from others that probably think it's a good thing, like it's supposed to be inspiring in some way, but it's not. It's a thing that actually causes this twist in your stomach and a feeling of agita and being upset and not fully engaged in life. So when I work with people in creating their happy, often we will have to address the subject of guilt, either before, because they're carrying some notion that they shouldn't feel happy, or if they are happy, they're doing something wrong. Or on the other side of it, like when we're navigating through and release belief issues and limiting problems and all of that, there's sometimes guilt on the other side because success has been attained. And they're happy when others around them are not happy. So I don't know if you guys can see this, but every once in a while, my laptop gives me a thumbs up. I think it's a new, there it is. A thumbs up. I don't know if you guys can see that or not. It's funny. I have no idea. It must have come with the last update, and I don't know how to unthumbs up. But since it's a thumbs up, we're going to keep it. So, good topic. Maybe it's saying, good job, Vic. So, interestingly, as I was going into this to record, I got on camera and I was like, oh, you need to change. I'm wearing dog walking clothes. And then I thought, why do I have to change? They're not here to see what I'm wearing. They're here to hear what I'm saying and to learn from that. And then I thought, well, I'll feel bad if it goes out and I'm not looking professional or otherwise. And I'm like, so you would have a little bit of guilt, would you? And where does that come from? So please know that no matter how much exploration we do, there's always another level of understanding within self. So I left the clothes on because, my sweatshirt says too tired to function sweatshirt. And it's usually the one I wear at the end of the day when I'm actually in that space. And it's a good message today, because if we're going to change our external or how we feel about something because of what we perceive others to feel, we're going to get caught in that guilt trap too. So back to what I was saying. The only experience, emotion that is taught to us is guilt, and usually by well-meaning people. From a spiritual perspective, I actually believe that it's a misalignment with our true selves, because we then start listening to other people and what they want. And maybe they were taught that too. In many families, this is a motivating factor that they'll use is, you'll disappoint me if you don't do this. And it's a controlling mechanism. And it's not something that I believe helps, but it's part of our evolution to realize that's not nice. So in this time where it's always been that life is precious, but I feel like there's more and more awareness of that as our frequency goes up in the universe. And then this year of community and really of having very little patience for any more BS or controlling mechanisms. Like it's all like at the end of our tolerance for that. I figured this was a good topic because sometimes people in our lives don't want to change and they will continue with the process of this. But if you are aware of it and you're like, you know what, guilt no longer has a place in my life, I live consciously, am kind, I contribute, then you can start to dismantle this way of being. And then maybe we can evolve out of it. I am always going to be optimistic of our growth and ability. But it's time to shed the weight of the guilt and let our joy be our compass. Intuition's our compass. So is our joy. So is our happy. Very intentional on my part to use it that way because we have to start listening to our own internal vibration. And if you're led by guilt, you are not listening to your own voice. And maybe it's been cloudy and maybe it's hard to hear sometimes. That's okay. It's okay. Just understand that when you're not aligned with self, you will feel discordant, like you'll feel off, you'll feel scratchy, you'll feel uncomfortable. You will not feel lit up. And it's a feeling of plugging in to self and really knowing who you are. And it takes practice. And it's something that some days we do and some days we don't feel. So let's talk about what are some of the common sources of guilt? Now, easy to go to family, right? It's absolutely easy to go to relationship dynamics. And perhaps that person that your parents or whomever raised you, they may have experienced their own insecurities and recognized their own shortcomings and felt guilt of their own and then pass that on. Maybe you're a parent now and you're measuring yourself against the IG protocol that doesn't exist anyway, because can we please remember we're only getting 30 seconds or 10 minutes of somebody's life that's curated? We have to start questioning some of this stuff about whether it feels true to us or not. Doesn't matter if it feels true. If it's not your life, you can just pass on by, but don't do the comparison. So there's a lot of parental guilt that can be there from those who raised us, but also those of us who may be in that role as a parent. And if you're feeling that, I often have to say to the clients who are parents, that we have to remember that our kids are not living our lives. Okay? They have a totally different experience that their soul came in to learn. So if you're carrying guilt, you're wasting time. You are wasting emotion. Figure out what's not lining up. Maybe tune into what would feel best. If your kids are old enough, ask them. Rather than spending all this time feeling guilty, I don't do this or I don't do that or I don't. You could do those things that you feel guilty about. Like put in some action. See, the thumbs up just went up. The gods in the computer really love that process and that idea. So many of my friends have parents who were very active in their religious communities, and there was a lot of guilt growing up around that, and it still impacts them to this day. And I have joked with a couple of them that I'm grateful I was number 7 of 8 in my family because my parents were tired. They were tired by the time I came along, and they weren't very interested in parenting. They certainly were not going to be interested in my spiritual growth and have us go to church or anything like that. So I didn't grow up with any preconceived notions about God, Jesus, the universe, angels, or anything. I got to explore that on my own. And I raised my kids that way for that reason, because of the feeling, or rather the not having guilt around measuring up to this non-physical eternal energy who is non-judgmental. It's the humans that are judgmental. Irony? I think not. So when you think of carrying guilt, it's heavy, right? Like it feels like something else I have to do. When you don't carry guilt, it just alleviates that feeling of, well, I suckness. Because most of the time, guilt is where we have not measured up, and carrying the weight of past mistakes. So, not mistakes, but it was a mistake. So, like in the movies where they do take two, well, we can have take 2,487,012. So, if you're feeling and you're often recollecting or talking about past mistakes, you're living back there, first of all. Second of all, you're not engaging to the present because you're back there. And third of all, you're setting perception for what could be in front of you. Because if you're always going to be looking back and judging, it's like a part of you is always looking over its shoulder to look for what you didn't do well. In my relationship, oftentimes I have to pause my partner and say, we are not there. We can share with me the experience, but don't share what you might feel bad about it or anything like that, because we can't go back and change that. But we can have awareness of how we would do it differently today. There are many things as a parent that I would do differently today than I did when I was raising my kids, but I can't go back and change that. What I can do is what I've already done is say to them, I'm sorry for what I didn't know at 19 years old and what I didn't know at 30 and what I now know at 54 and a half. So exactly a half. So should be having a party any day now. So if you're carrying guilt from what you did in the past, I want you to remember that statement, or maybe this will be the first time you've heard it, that there's a reason that the windshield is bigger than our rearview mirror. We need to be looking forward and use the rearview mirror as just checking. Are you going to bump into anything? Are you going to have to navigate this because of previous knowledge or experience? Like yesterday, I went to lunch with a friend and someone blocked me in so tight on the street side. And this is a total aside. This is one of those squirrel moments that you get with Vicki. But he was standing right there looking at me, and I had like this much room. So I did boom, 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 just kept turning to get out because I had a rear view mirror and I also have experience maybe bumping into something that was objects are in the rear view mirror up here closer than they are. Thank you, Meatloaf. So past experience can guide you into getting out of a situation. That was a pretty good tie-in. You got to give me that because I was just rolling with this. But it can guide you to getting out of there without scrapes and bumps. But to only live by looking in that rearview mirror, you're going to crash into something in front of you. Something's going to come in your path. Okay, so those are a couple sources. Comparison, that's always going to be the thief of joy. It is always going to have you measuring perceived standards, perceived, not necessarily real. So it can be a source of guilt for what you, again, didn't do. Or guilt is often a retroactive thing. It's usually from the past. And again, not serving you. When you feel guilty, it's like saying, I'm a bad person, right? And you're not. I promise you, you're not. I know anyone listening to this podcast is doing the absolute best they can with the energy they are in the moment and that you are in the moment. And maybe some of the guilt that you're carrying comes from not seeing yourself in that light. And then you start to prioritize your self-care and then you feel guilt about that. Maybe somebody in your life is saying that you're taking care of you and they're afraid you're going to grow and expand and move beyond them. So you feel guilty doing the things you actually know you have to do, or you're probably going to lose your marbles. I used to feel that, like when the kids were probably preteen and teen, given their age gap, and I just needed a walk. I just needed to go for a walk. It wasn't like I was going out on the town every night. I just needed to go for a walk, and I would not go. because I would feel guilty because I worked all day. I need to be home or getting them to baseball games or helping them with homework or whatever was going on at the time. And I would feel guilty about that. But that's one of the things I would change, because what I know now is go for the walk and come back refreshed and be present for your kids. Here's one I see because I work with a lot of successful people: success in happiness, success in career, success in their family relationships. Success, the reason it's called Intuition, Your Success Compass, is because I can't define success for you. No one can. You have to use your own compass to define what success is for you. But what I see across the board with most of the people that I work with is there is a success guilt. And like I said earlier, we will navigate that when it shows up. I always hope it doesn't, but when it does, I'm prepared because I've seen it so often. It's like this place within ourselves, and I've experienced this myself too, like this place within yourself that you feel like if you go that next level and like life really is good across the board, you should feel guilty about that. But what I also know is that is disrespectful to every other soul on this planet, especially the ones you're pointing out. Like, I shouldn't be happy because there are people who are sad or grieving. Well, that's not the case. We have to hold the energy. For those of us that are having a really good run of it, or life is feeling aligned and joyful and lit up, we have to hold the energy for those who may be going through stuff in their life, just like I know others hold the energy when we go through it. So if you feel a guilt about being successful in whatever area of life that is, you're not honoring your fellow human and believing in the co-creation we have going on here. We are not all one being. We are each individual beings contributing to a larger intelligence and brilliance. So of course there's going to be parts that aren't feeling all lit up at times when other parts are. So if you could think of it as shining a light, and then those who may need it can find it, or maybe they just need a break and they need to breathe and they're not holding that light at the time. So if you're feeling success and others, because others are, and you're feeling guilty about it because others are struggling, well, then figure out how to help and stop feeling guilty about it, because that's wasted energy and emotion. Figure out how to help then. Stop being up here. Get into action and help. Sometimes there's survivor's guilt, especially in accidents, in when we have natural disasters, or like what's going on in Israel and Palestine and Gaza and on the Gaza Strip, and just everywhere in life. As long as humans have been humans, there's been something like that going on. We just know about it a lot more now because of the ability of technology. So sometimes, even if you know nothing of these others, you can have survivor's guilt. And again, I would say, well, then honor those people, whether they've passed or whether they're going through this experience now, or maybe you walked out of the accident without one scratch and someone else ended up paralyzed. Honor their process, honor the intelligence of their soul and the experience that they're going through. Get a therapist and deal with the guilt that survivor's guilt that you're holding on to. But then respect the fact that their experience is separate from your experience. And again, help if you can. Help if you can. Like, there is a lot of wasted time, emotion, frustration, anger, all of that, when we are so self-centered and not realizing that what we're experiencing is not what another experience, and what another is experience is not what we're experiencing. It's different than empathy. Empathy is when you can understand that someone's going through something because you felt a similar sense of guilt or pain, not guilt, grief or pain or frustration. Like, you can understand, you don't take their experience. Sympathy is and sympathy and guilt, I find, run hand in hand. Like if somebody has a very guilty energy and a tendency to lean there, they will also often sympathize. So putting themselves in the situation that the other person is in rather than being there for them. So it's challenging to be human, but we don't need to add this manufactured energy. I believe that it's there and it works because of something that we could evolve out of in time and with intention. And it may be that you have a guilt around not, it's so hard for me to say it this way because I don't believe in it, but I have to point it out because that's how it's worded. It often is not meeting societal norms because I don't believe in societal norms. I don't believe that there is a governing body putting some kind of norm out there. And I love that expression, normal is just a function on the dryer, because it's true. So, but I have to say it that way because so many people will get that. They'll understand what that means, whether that's their lifestyle choice, their career path, personal values, their spiritual beliefs, and the, loving who they love, right? So there's no societal norm, but yet there is an encouragement to break societal norms because I'm sure from an anthropological standpoint, there are societal norms. I'm saying energetically, I know there are no societal norms. So just in case that was going to come back as a comment. So these are just some sources, right, that you may have experienced in your life with the flicking of the switch of guilt. Because by recognizing where these things initiate and by being so in touch with your own sense and your own body means you have to pause. I'm always saying this. We have to take time. We have to get quiet in order to know who we are. If you can assess that within yourself as soon as you feel guilt coming up, don't judge it. Your judge in your head is going to want to judge it. Vicki said, don't feel guilty. Well, don't feel guilty that I said, don't feel guilty. Boy, that's just creating another line. But pause, acknowledge that, oh, I'm feeling some guilt here. Wonder what's going on. Where is that coming from? This is not about a blame game. This is simply about identifying that I'm feeling some guilt. I don't want to do that anymore because I know it's just using up and wasting brain space and precious resources. So I don't want to do that anymore. So let me figure out where it's coming from. And maybe, listen, there's probably 1,000 other sources that I didn't name in the interest of a 45-minute podcast. I try to keep it to that level. I can't cover them all. So you may have your own. And hey, if you have some I didn't cover, send them in. Let me know. Perhaps we'll do a follow-up. If the pursuits in our life is alignment, happiness, being of service, but genuinely feeling good within ourselves, we have to be willing to be unapologetically happy, unapologetically enjoy. And you can't be unapologetically happy and enjoy and have guilt. It doesn't work. It ruins the recipe. So this will actually be something that you bump up against somewhere in your life. But if you can recognize the frequency, every emotion has a frequency, and guilt has a kind of a look energy. It just feels yucky. So you may feel it differently. You may have a different resonance for it. So learn what yours is. When you feel that familiar whoop coming up where you're feeling guilty, maybe you told a friend you would go out, but then you got to that evening and you are just wiped and it's not in your best interest to go. You'll probably feel a little bit of guilt there. Pause and say, okay, how's this show up in my body? Am I seeing anything? Am I feeling anything? Am I intuiting anything? What's going on here so that you can figure out what is the source for you. Okay? Because as you expand and as you learn more and as you become happier and more calm and unapologetically you, Others may not like it, and you will have to feel that out and be willing to be brave enough to say, I actually don't feel guilty about that. I don't feel guilty about anything anymore. I, Vicki, don't. And it's because I get ahead of it, right? Like if I feel like I might be heading down the road of tapping into someone else's perceived disappointment because I don't know for sure if they're disappointed. And if they're disappointed that they set an expectation of me that was never discussed, maybe. But I get ahead of it now. Anything that I say I'm going to do, I am really going to do, and I genuinely am going. I just had this conversation with my partner's mother the other day. I offered to do something. It turned out that I didn't have to do it. And she was apologizing up and down, and she's got Catholic guilt all sewn up. She's a professional in it. But I said to her, let me pause you there because this may be different than you're used to, but I never offer to do something I'm not wholeheartedly willing to do. Because then I will follow through without feelings of guilt that I have to back out of it. Because why? I used to overcommit and I used to say I do things and I was a people pleaser. And then I realized, look, this is not good for any of our relationships. So when I said to her, I am genuinely happy to help you. I am genuinely happy that you found another solution. I don't feel bad about it. I'm cool. And she was like, oh. And she didn't quite know what to do with that. And she's so sweet. She just let it hang there. And we don't have to talk about it. Right. But this is because I put years of practice. I'm not saying this to toot my own horn. I'm saying it. I know from what you're dealing with here. If you hold that guilt, and it's crucial to recognize the patterns to be able to break free from them and live authentically. And you break free from them by being able to identify them, but then also getting in front of it. So I have a rule that along with if I've offered to do it, it's because I genuinely want to do it. Why? Because I checked in with me first. I checked in before I even answered you. If it was in an email, I promised you I checked in about 3 times before I answered you. Except on the rare occasions it's an immediate yes. I'll check in because I want to be authentically with people, and then I won't feel guilt or disappointment or frustration or any of that kind of stuff. And it's important to recognize the impacts that guilt can have on your happiness. It's exhausting. It stifles authenticity because constant guilt causes individuals to we suppress our true selves when we feel constant guilt because it's always in the way. It's like scrambling the signal, right? So it limits your ability to show joy and to actually feel joy and to be in joy. There's so many ways that it impacts your happiness that you may not be aware of. And that's where a little bit of self-inventory comes in. It's an energy drain. Talk about psychic unplugging. It will drain your battery so fast, especially if you dwell on it and regurgitate stuff that's going on or happened in the past. So it not only drains you mentally and emotionally, it actually shows up in your etheric energy field as these like pock marks, like little divots, like somebody went in and took a melon baller. And when I look at someone and I see those pock marks, I'm like, okay, all right, that tells me what to do here and how to ask questions, what questions to ask. So if you're someone who feels drained a lot, and well, get your levels checked, make sure you're okay. But consider the fact that you may be draining your own psychic battery by regurgitating guilt. And it makes it very difficult to enjoy the success you have attained. Successful people who carry guilt can really struggle with feelings of unworthiness of the happiness that comes from the achievement. And that's so sad to me. because you've worked hard for it. Most people that I find are, if they're feeling guilt, they're not somebody who had success handed to them. They are someone who worked for it. And then to not be able to feel that, and it's an impact on your physical health. Prolonged guilt can lead to ulcers, it can lead to the mental and emotional stress, and it manifests in the body. This is one of the reasons that I do the Magic Mind, is because I need some help in my physical body while I'm learning how my stress levels or my old belief systems impact my physical body, right? So with the Magic Mind and the cordyceps mushrooms that are in there, they're just amazing for reducing that inflammation that comes along from holding guilt and holding stress and worry, another wasted emotion. But you can't tell people not to worry. That did come wired in us, but it's not always going to be helpful. So with the Magic Mind, I know it improves my immune system. People around me, everybody's sick. And I'm like, no, I'm good. Thanks. Because of the B vitamins, but also these mushrooms that are in it that increase the ATP that activate the mitochondria of your cells and make them little happy cells. I like to imagine it like when I take my Magic Mind mid-morning, I like to imagine my cells being very happy and being fired, like fired up so that I have some endurance to make it through the day. And I need to look at the code here so I make sure I give it to you correctly. So it's a beautiful way to support yourself when going through any kind of stressful time, but most especially in building the blocks that are needed to do any of this emotional, spiritual energy work. If your body is supported and you feel calm because of the ashwagandha that they've been using since 1600 BC, like it's a gift you give yourself. And the gift I can give you is the code of Vicki B20, which will give you 20% off. Or for the month of February, you go to magicmind.com/Vicki B20, and that will give you up to 50%. Making up my own numbers now, up to 56% off your subscription. For then add the code in, you get even more off. And if you're already somebody who subscribes, go ahead and do this. Get in there and update it with the code VickiB20 because you'll get 20% off your next payment. You're already getting the product. You're already signed up. Good for you because you knew it was going to support you and it tastes amazing. And you can get it. They're in all the markets now. That's very exciting to be able to say that about this amazing company. You can go to their website, look up the map, and find them, the Sprouts markets, but they're in there. But if you go to the website and you do the direct ship, you get these discounts. You're not going to get the discount if you walk into the store, but it's convenient. So go ahead and head on over there to magicmind.com/VickiB20. I'll wait. You can come back and listen to this afterwards. But then you can have support and feeling calm and focused and more in your body, supported, so that you can consider all of these things that every week I ask you to delve into in your own intuitive growth and your own emotional growth and physical being. So when you're considering the sources of where guilt may come from, the impact of where guilt may come from, or the impact of guilt will have on your happiness, like, it's important to not judge yourself for it. Like, I remember after Howard passed, right? So this is my late husband. After he passed, I was aware of the people that were hurting and the level of pain that they were hurting in. And I remember feeling a little bit of guilt, not survivor's guilt, but a little bit of grief guilt, I guess, that I wasn't feeling that pain as much or as often as they were describing they were feeling it. And then I realized, well, that's because I had 3 years to work with this. Like, intuitively, I knew he was passing. He had a near-death experience. He came back. but I always knew he was passing. Like, I always intuitively knew he was passing soon. So I worked through some of that grief ahead of time, and we had all our conversations that we needed to have before he passed. And I was very present in his passing and then his transition. So his illness and then his transition. So the guilt that came up was actually what I called an evolutionary guilt, because I knew he was okay. I was grateful that he was out of pain and that he got what he wanted. He didn't want to be physical anymore, and he wasn't. He got what he wanted. So I was feeling guilty that I didn't hurt as bad as these other people seemed to be hurting. But I was forgetting that I had already done the emotional work so that I could be present for him passing. And yes, I still hurt. I had a day a couple days ago, I call them my Howard days, where it's just difficult. And it's been 8.5 years. There are always going to be those, but I didn't need to carry guilt that I wasn't hurting the way other people were hurting, because first of all, not up to me to judge how somebody else is hurting, but also I honor him and his soul and his process. So feeling guilty about that was not gonna honor him and that process. And I could almost hear him in my head, "Hun, is that gonna help?" And I'm like, "No." But as I've said to him many times in the non-physical, you're no longer human. You don't get to vote on emotions. So you just be your non-physical self and tell me to stop crying and be off with you. So there are levels of guilt, of course, but any amount of it is going to block that happiness, because I actually said to Howard in the non-physical one time, he came through and he said, "Please stop crying." And I said to him, "You don't get to say, I get to be in this pain because I'm human and I have to learn to live without you in my life when you were there for 27 years. And I said, I have to figure out how to be happy again." And that's actually what started most of this and what is now becoming this content about we can be happy and go through horrific things. We can be happy and understand that there's going to be challenging times and difficulty in our world, and we can still be happy at the same time. It came from that conversation with him of, I'm human. I have to figure out how to be happy. And that's when I realized, whoa, this is really an inside job. And this is something that I'm responsible for creating and still in the process of, admittedly. So, what are some practical strategies? We know now that there are sources and we know the impacts, but what about some strategies? What are some of the things that I have used and that I also use and with my clients to alleviate some of this guilt? It's on each of us to do our own work, but I'm glad you asked. So let's discuss that. If you have a daily mindfulness, it will quiet the guilt chatter. So self reflection, exercise, again, to pinpoint the roots. Where's it coming from? What's the source? And then drawing some strength from your soul level, knowing this is not a soul emotion. This is a human emotion. We're not going to judge it, remember, but we are going to have compassion for the fact that you're feeling it, but also ask it to leave because it's not serving any longer. So, of course, journaling. I am going to say journaling for just about everything that you want to uncover within yourself or you want to understand, because when you have an honest self-reflection practice, it shows up pretty quickly. You'll identify the patterns. You'll find yourself having a dialogue back and forth about your beliefs. And then you'll be like, I can do this. I really believe I can do this. I'm trying to recall what this morning's was in my journal because I remember having something along these lines, but it's not coming to me. Maybe it'll come to me and I'll share it after. But at the time, and when I was journaling, I was like, oh, I didn't even know I was feeling that. Oh, you know what? I can't share it. It's personal. It's private and I have to respect my partnership. But that experience of, oh, didn't even know I was feeling that. oh, okay. He's sick right now. So once he's feeling better, we'll have a conversation and we'll navigate that. But that's what journaling will do for you, whether it's about guilt, whether it's about the judgmental side you got going on right now, whether you're avoiding something or your victim self is showing up. Let it show up in your journal and then be compassionate and kind towards yourself so that it can move along. There will always be an encouragement to set realistic boundaries. I guess we'll use that word. To set the realistic boundaries with others. Learn to say no when necessary. Learn to say yes when it lights you up. So if something doesn't light you up, no thank you. Put the thank you on the end of it. It's perfect. It helps you to honor the other person, but also make your quiet getaway. And you'll prioritize self-care when you set realistic boundaries. And then with the outcome of that is unnecessary guilt, gone, because you've already addressed it. You knew what was okay for you to do, what was fine for you to sign up for or not. So it's a boundary with yourself, really. And then you can communicate that to others. So begin to practice accountability without blame. And I know we say we have, like, get an accountability partner, or people will say to me, I feel accountable to you, so I'll do my soul work, which is what we call the stuff. I don't call it homework, we call it soul work. We can only be accountable to ourselves. That's an inside job too. But if you need help learning to be accountable to self, then I'd be happy to help you. But one of the things you want to do is acknowledge your mistakes. Remember the movie, Take Two? Without self-blame. Acknowledge them, apologize if necessary, take responsibility for your actions, but also recognize the growth that's there and that you were learning as part of the process and this human experience. So unless you intentionally hurt someone, well, if you did that, you need to accept responsibility and be accountable, but still don't blame it. Like, step up, be responsible, but also recognize the growth and the intention to raise your frequency and do better. So physical activity, always going to suggest that, because without that, we stagnate and the energy stagnates. That's the most important part. Like, yeah, it helps your heart and it helps your legs and your arms and your muscles and all that kind of stuff. But for me, it's more about moving that energy, like getting it moving. And a lot of the times you will have awarenesses while you're moving your body, whether it's on a walk, on a spin bike, while you're doing reps in the gym. It's worth it to engage it. It releases the endorphins that you need, which contribute to a more positive mood and helping to alleviate feelings of guilt. And yeah, we can go back to the other one where you may have guilt for self-care, but please learn from me. Go for that walk, go to the gym, go to that class, whatever it is, because your kids want you to be present and to be happy in yourself. And that hour that you take will allow you to show up in that. And then you'll be teaching them that caring for themselves is a really important thing. So I believe the practice of gratitude keeps me in alignment, keeps me moving, and it helps me to focus on the things that are going well in my life. So an attitude of gratitude. And then I up the ante with appreciation, because gratitude's very short-lived. There's a podcast episode about that. But it shifts your mindset towards appreciation. Gratitude shifts your mindset towards appreciation, which will counteract those feelings of guilt and enhance a sense of personal empowerment. Like, if all of us felt good about ourselves, we wouldn't be involved in all these conflicts and power grabs and all of that kind of stuff. So seek supportive relationships. This is the year of community, remember? So one of the ways you can alleviate some of that practice of guilt is surround yourself with people who encourage you to look at that or to say, how is that serving you? And is that helpful to carry that guilt? Make a decision or don't. I've actually said that to a friend when it got to the point where I was like, I can't participate in this anymore. This back and forth and feeling bad because this one said this or that one said that, or that one doesn't get along with that. So I can't hang out with this one. I can't hang out with that one. I'm like, make a decision, choose where you're going, and then stand behind it. And then it will be probably scary and nerve wracking, but you'll have made the decision and then you can stand behind you and it will help to propel you to do that if you share your feelings of guilt with a friend or coach or therapist to gain insights and emotional support. So holding on to the guilt is never going to serve others. One of my clients, but it occurs to me that it's happened in a couple cases where she was not in love with her partner and they tried many different counseling and clergy and retreats and all of that. They tried everything and it wasn't clicking for her. And we worked on the guilt part of it because I wanted her to be able to believe in herself no matter where the relationship went. It didn't matter if they ended up separating or if they ended up finding themselves again. She still needed to lose the guilt and believe in herself and that she mattered. And in this particular case, they decided to split, and both women are, it makes my heart so happy, deliriously happy right now because they tapped into the courage it takes to drop the guilt and say, this is what I want for my life. This is where I feel like I'm heading, and it does not feel aligned to be in this relationship any longer. And I am so thrilled to say they are still the best of friends. That was bumpy for a couple years, as expected. But it was releasing the guilt that she had said was the major component, because once she did that, she felt like she could speak from the heart and be inspired and share the transformative power of her joy and then help her former partner to experience that for herself. And it's just just a beautiful thing, isn't it? To be adults who can say this isn't working for me, but I really want to see you living unapologetic joy, and I want to be living unapologetic joy myself. So imagine a world where joy isn't a fleeting moment that we have or an endorphin hit, but like your constant companion. It is time to unapologetically choose happiness and joy, because joy is the energy of the soul. It's the frequency of the soul. Happy is the human equivalent. And when you embrace it as your soul right, as your birthright, as every lifetime right, you will align with your spiritual essence, and it will raise your frequency and your vibration, and it will have an overwhelming, in a good way, impact on those around you. And I have evidence of that. People will say to me all the time, I just like being around because you're fun. And I'm like, well, that wasn't always the case. And I have no interest in masking it anymore. So when I don't feel fun, I'm very truthful about it. And that's what can happen when you're so good with your emotions that you are present with them and you can communicate them. All of these other emotions that have held you down don't need to apply for the job anymore. Okay? So can we agree to do that? Can you agree to tap in, assess where the guilt is, how it feels when it shows up, and then maybe use one of these strategies to move through the guilt, the mindfulness practice? So what's the source, the impact of it, and then what can I do about it? Okay? So I know you can do it, but if you need help, I'm here. VickiBaird.com, Vicki Baird Coaching, all the platforms. I'm the one who answers the messages, so feel free to drop in there if you'd like. info@vickibaird.com is a better place to get me because there are so many places to check messages that if you do info@vickibaird.com, I get it through Enrique, and I will apply or reply much sooner. So thank you for being here. Thank you for choosing joy and for wanting to be happy, even if you don't know what that means right now. You're so brave. Thank you. I'll see you in the next episode. Thank you for listening to this episode of Intuition, Your Success Compass. I appreciate you being here. If you would like more information about developing your intuitive skills, removing those blocks, and creating the life that feels the most successful to you, then head on over to vickibaird.com. That's VICKIBAIRD.com. And check out the courses, the groups, and the Spaces app that will allow you to be part of our community and know about upcoming events and specials. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next episode.